In Atlanta, we like them bad and bougie, pinch hitters that is, and none are more bad or more bougie than Joc Pederson, who came through again in the clutch as the Braves won 3-0 Monday to take a 2-1 lead on the Brewers in the NLDS. You're watching Battery Power. I'm Cory McCartney along with Grant McAuley. And Grant, we saw Ian Anderson battle through 5 strong innings, but moments got no bigger than Joc Pederson's 3-run bomb.
No, it didn't get any bigger than that. He's been the guy for them off the bench. And I know we'll talk a lot about Joc Pederson's usage, but if you talk about a guy in the right spot at the right time, coming through in the clutch, it's Joc Pederson. He did it for the Braves today. One big swing of the bat sent the Braves to a victory. And, of course, the pitching staff did its part as well. But, man, it's not just Joctober right now. The battery is probably full tilt all the way into Joctoberfest. And they're hoping that that party continues, of course, in Game 4. And we'll get to that. But that's exactly why you go get a Joc Pederson, is to have that kind of power, that kind of experience to be a part of your club. And whether he's starting or whether he's coming off the bench, the moment has not been too big for him. And as you said, the moments don't get much bigger than his pinch hit home run to help the Braves win Game 3.
When the Joc puns are flowing, you know things are obviously going well for the Braves. But it was a key decision from Brewers manager Craig Counsell that even set the stage for Pederson's second homer of the series. We've got a lot to get into, so let's start off with what went right for the Braves. And I mentioned Counsell's decision there. Go into the 5th inning, 2 on, no outs after Luis Urias and Omar Narvaez reached. Lorenzo Cain, of course, grounds out to it thanks to a spectacular play from Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
That forced Counsell's hand. He pulls Freddie Peralta after just 57 pitches. Things backfired. Daniel Vogelbach led into a rundown for the second out. Colton Wong ends up lining out. Things all that went right for Atlanta, but it's what came after, I think, that was really the big thing here. Reliever Adrian Hauser comes in, gives up back-to-back singles before Pederson steps in and just absolutely launches that pinch hit home run.
Yeah, and you talk about what Joc Pederson did in that moment. He's the only player in baseball history, according to Sarah Langs, to hit 2 pinch hit home runs off the same pitcher in the same postseason series. That had never been done. He's only the 3rd man in postseason history to have 2 pinch hit home runs in the same series in the postseason. So it was, all signs were pointing to Joc Pederson there. You just felt like when he stepped up there that there was an opportunity for something big to happen. And of course, he made that happen. But you mentioned, Craig Counsell wasn't afraid to make those moves. And I know that's a lot of what we talk about in the postseason is there's hindsight, of course, involved. There's second guessing. There's armchair quarterbacking. There's backseat driving, whatever you want to call it. It's very difficult to make the right decisions in the postseason. You will be second and third guess for the entirety of your career, of course. But when it came to Counsell wanting to be a little bit aggressive and try to get some runs on the board, he did it. I don't think you can fault him for that. He just flat out didn't work out. But that should kind of be a cautionary tale that even though you see the outcome of the thing that didn't work out for you, that does not, it's kind of a false equivalency to say, oh, well, if we'd just done a different thing, the outcome would have been entirely different. It's still up to chance. Baseball is still an incredibly hard game. A lot of things have to happen. And fortunately, on this day, a lot of things happened right for the Braves, or should I say just enough things happened right for them, and nothing seemed to really go right for the Brewers.
Well, 6 runs had been scored in this series up to that point when he decided that he'd seen, enough and wanted to try to capitalize and ends up pulling Peralta. I mean, I think, that's the thing, though. You're managing to win today and you'll worry about tomorrow. But 100%. Now you're Counsell and you've got a situation where all you have is tomorrow, and you took away a guy who was absolutely rolling. So, I think if Hauser hadn't been so bad, maybe we're not even having this conversation, but the fact that you pull Peralta, you can't break through, and then they get you the next half an inning. I mean, that one's going to hurt them for a while, I think, in the Brewers clubhouse.
Yeah, it has to. But I mean, for Hauser, this is not the role that he's used to, getting up in the middle of a game, coming in a scoreless game, a tight game, a postseason game where, the lights are brightest, even if you're having to play at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He was called upon in the biggest spot for his team. And I'm sure he'll tell you that he'd like to have that pitch back. I would go look at the pitch tracks and tell you, man, he threw one up out of the zone. He got a free strike on the first one, and that one that left the ballpark was right up there as well. That's just a great job of hitting. And you may hear that old adage, especially around Braves country, a lot about tipping your cap. I think it's one of those moments. Joc Pederson not only got him that first time back in Milwaukee, he got him again here in Atlanta. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the Brewers are going to have a very short memory. This really harkens back to the conversation we had after Game 1 of this series for the Braves. You can't be thinking about the games that follow that day that you're trying to win. So if you're the Brewers, I think it's all hands on deck. Game 4, try to win it, force it back to Milwaukee, figure it out when you get there. For the Braves, it is step on that throat and do not let the Brewers get back up, and we'll see exactly how that works out. Hope that wasn't too over the top in terms of the verbiage there, but you got to keep those guys down. You got to finish this series. You got to take care of business at home, and it'd be pretty sweet to see some guys swimming in the fountain after Game 4 tomorrow.
A little bit more on Joc Pederson. I mean, it wasn't the game-changing regular season for him. After he came to Atlanta, hit just 1% above league average, a 752 OPS. But you mentioned it, the third player in MLB in history with 2 pinch hit homers in a series. I'm stunned by this. Now, career OPS of 905 in the postseason. He is .003 behind Mickey Mantle on the all-time list. So, I mean, obviously, this guy made for these moments, and it's just, we always hear about a guy that can come in and change the tenor of a clubhouse, and certainly, the pearls are great, the vibe is great, but clearly what he's brought to these guys since coming over and just kind of taken after you lose Ronald Acuna Jr. and just allowing them to kind of decompress a little bit and exhale, I think is maybe the biggest factor there, or the biggest thing on Joc Pederson's stat line.
I think it's one of those things that maybe you don't even see on the stat line beyond those numbers that you just mentioned. And I know we love talking about postseason numbers. Every time Mickey Mantle's name comes up, he's in the record book having done something a whole bunch of times. Typically it's home runs, runs batted in, all that kind of stuff. OPS in this particular case. He did all that in the World Series before there even were playoffs to get there, which is pretty amazing to think about. But regardless, these are the most important games your team is playing at any point this season. And Joc Pederson has been one of the most critical, one of the most clutch players for the Dodgers and now for the Braves. And if you want kind of another old school stat, Joc Pederson has driven in 4 runs in his 3 at-bats, all of them coming off the bench, 2 of them leaving the park. The rest of the Braves team has combined to drive in 3 runs, all sum total. So it hasn't been the big Braves offense that we thought might show up in this series or had a chance to perhaps break out at least in one of these games in the series. Hasn't happened yet. But Joc Pederson has been exactly what the Braves have needed it multiple times now. Even if his home run in Game 1 didn't, amount to the Braves being able to win that ball game, at least it got him back into things, and it showed that Joc is just a guy you can lean on in these moments, and I don't think that you can overstate the value of that this time of year.
Meanwhile, after some strong pitching performances from Charlie Morton and Max Fried in the first 2 games, Ian Anderson more than held his own. He threw 5 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts, looking a lot more like 2020 postseason Ian Anderson. The vaunted changeup, by the way, was spectacular at 56% whiff rate on that pitch. Retired the Brewers in order in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then worked his way out of trouble in the 5th inning. What did you make of what we saw from Ian Anderson today?
This was exactly what we were hoping for when we did the preview for this game. And it was when I said early on in one of our episodes, it might have been a couple episodes ago, that, hey, in our preview, Ian Anderson did a pretty nice Steve Avery impression. I went and ran the numbers today. I posted it on Twitter, but Steve Avery in the 91 postseason was nails. And that's exactly what Ian Anderson was for the Braves in the 2000 postseason. So we wanted to see, was an encore there? Was he going to be able to match up to those lofty, I would call them expectations, or at least try to match up in some way, shape, or form to the bar that he set a year ago? He answered the bell today. It was only the 5 innings, but that's what the Braves needed. They made it work after that with the bullpen, which didn't even have too many bend but don't break moments. The Brewers would get a couple of guys on here or there, but they weren't really able to amount to much in terms of scoring rallies. They were off the board for the 2nd consecutive game. The Brewers have scored 2 runs in this series. They both came in Game 1. They both came on that swing of the bat by Rowdy Tellez. The Braves have thrown back-to-back shutouts. Corey, this is feeling a lot like the 2020 postseason when the Braves starting staff just decided to go out there and shove every single day. And that's what these 3 guys have done. 1 mistake from Charlie Morton, still a good start from him, but the Braves offense enough the last couple of games to put Atlanta in the driver's seat in this series.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it wasn't Ian Anderson at the end of the regular season that we saw at the end of last regular season, but he has absolutely ratcheted it up. Brewers hitters came in with a collective 111 average against him, 1 extra base hit. They had 1 extra base hit today, just hit over 150 against him. So just a little bit tick above what we saw before. But man, he was fantastic. Dansby Swanson, like everyone not named Austin Riley, Eddie Rosario, and Joc Pederson, is not hitting in this lineup. Mere 200 average. But man, he's making some just fantastic defensive plays. I mentioned what he did in getting Lorenzo Cain out there in the 5th. Then he comes through with another defensive gem to close out the 8th inning. And just a couple errors over his last 100 innings. when I don't know ultimately how you decide who wins a Gold Glove, because what I think is how you decide who wins a Gold Glove makes no sense when I ultimately see who wins the Gold Glove.
Sure.
But man, it feels like Dansby Swanson is going to be in that conversation, going to be in that finalist mix, and we've seen some great plays from him in this series.
I think he's been there in that conversation the last couple of years, to be honest. But if you wanted a day that could encapsulate the kind of candidacy he has for whatever version of fielding excellence awards you want to hand out, Dansby Swanson with the infield in was able to make that diving play. That was huge. That double play he started late in the game, that was as big, if not even bigger. That was exactly what the Braves needed to get out of trouble there, get back in the dugout, hold on to that lead. So whether or not you're able to contribute with the bat remains to be seen game to game. Again, the postseason, you're going to be seeing the best pitching from the best teams. There's a reason why they're there. So it's not exactly easy to have everybody batting 300 plus in the postseason. You'd like to see a couple of three guys do it maybe, but there's some time left, I think, for the Braves to figure that out. Maybe they can start up the band, so to speak, with the offense in Game 4. But this great defense, that's the hallmark of a winning club, and that is what makes your pitching even better. Braves have been able to miss a lot of bats as far as the pitching staff goes, but man, when Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, guys like that are making plays or in the right spot behind them, it makes that staff that much more effective, and I think we've seen a good amount of that in the first 3 games of this series.
Switching, Grant, to what went wrong for the Braves, I mean, largely the early base running blunder from Adam Duvall. He tried to make up for it with a 4th inning triple that was helped by a near spectacular play gone awry from Lorenzo Cain when he fell short trying to make a catch at the wall. Obviously, Duvall ends up getting stranded at third there, but Duvall gunned down by Christian Yelich at second, keeping Austin Riley from scoring the game's first run in the second on a fly from Travis d'Arnaud. It didn't end up costing the Braves, but considering that the issue there and what we've seen from Joc Pederson at the plate, what does this kind of lead to you in thinking, all right, maybe we need to see something different in this outfield?
Well, there's a couple of different things that were in play today. If you want to talk about things that it went wrong or didn't go quite right, it's hard to harp on them too much after you win. Sometimes you win in spite of the mistakes you make. And I would say that the Adam Duvall base running error was certainly one of those that you're glad that somebody came off the bench, Joc Pederson, and gave the Braves all the offense they needed in this game to win it. But for Duvall, I don't know if it's just a lack of awareness, trying to be too aggressive, forgetting how many outs there were, whatever the case. That kind of thing can't happen, and it certainly can't happen in the postseason. I'm sure Duvall's well aware of that. I know I saw the in-game interview that they did on the television broadcast with Brian Snitker, who said as much. That kind of thing can't happen. And, you've been around Snit. I've been around Snit. When you get the very, very short answer, he's upset about it. But what can you do at that point? You are in the middle of the biggest games that you're going to play, and that day happens to be the biggest game that you're playing to that point in that season. So no time to overreact, but those kind of mistakes, I'm sure they'll be talked about. You got to cut those out. The other thing I would kind of circle is Eddie Rosario out in left field has been a little bit more of an adventure a couple of times. It didn't hurt the Braves on this day, but man, that just feels like one of those things that you'd like to see a little bit more consistency out there. Don't know if he's having trouble picking up the ball, just taking a bad route, whatever it may be. That was a little something that had me concerned, because in the playoffs, a base runner is a rally. It might sound ridiculous. It might sound like a cliche. You might not believe it, but man, I've watched enough October baseball to know that, hey, a hit batsman can put somebody on for a 2-run homer. We already saw that sting the Braves once in this series. And those are the kind of things, free base runners, extra bases, things that are given away that you just can't afford in October.
Yeah, I mean, it gets interesting because Duvall is the best of those 3 defenders if we're talking about Pederson, Rosario, and himself. But if he's not hitting and the other 2 guys are, I mean, what are you willing to give up, I guess, in terms of having the best look that you can have out there? So I think that's going to be something we're going to certainly be watching as we head into Game 4. But the Braves haven't dug too deep into the bullpen through 3 games in the series. Jesse Chavez saw action today in Game 3, but Tyler Matzek, Luke Jackson each had their 3rd appearances. They saw Will Smith for the 2nd time. A couple of hits again against Tyler Matzek and Luke Jackson. Do you have concerns with how much in a short time period you're seeing those same faces and how the Brewers are reacting to them?
Yeah, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out the more that you see somebody, the better your plan of attack gets against them, no matter how good their stuff is. You're getting just a little bit more familiar. Maybe you're not necessarily hitting a home run or, parking one against the guy, but you're fouling off that tough pitch. You're waiting on him to make some kind of mistake that he might not have made the first time or 2 that you saw him. Again, as they get more familiar, it just gives more of that opportunity to create a better game plan, a different game plan. And then baseball has a funny way of working out sometimes. It's that check swing, broken bat single over the shortstop or whatever it may be. Those you can't really blame on the pitcher, but it's just all part of that mix, I feel like, when you're throwing the same guys out there, same matchups in a short amount of time. So there are other relievers that I would look at that could help the Braves out, but in tight games, do you want to throw your best and say, hey, I used my best? Or do you want to try to kind of space it out and use this guy and that guy in a situation that they may not belong in and that you may not have normally had earmarked for them? I think that's also the balance that a manager has to walk in the postseason is, if I'm going to win, this is the guy that's helped me do it all year. And if I'm going to lose, I want to lose with my best guys out there, not having outthought the game and then finding out that the game had other ideas.
Well, we know that Brian Snitker is a creature of comfort, and obviously those guys, have been big performers for him in a lot of innings throughout this year. But when you think about the guys that we've yet to see, Dylan Lee, AJ Minter, Drew Smiley, Jacob Webb, Huascar Yanoa, who knows how many of them we'll see how the Braves want to attack things in Game 4, but certainly a number of guys that were key contributors during this season that we have yet to see with an opportunity in that bullpen.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they deploy all of that in Game 4 if need be. It's all hands on deck, of course. At that point, you have a chance to win that series, and having a few guys rested in the bullpen is certainly helpful, but everybody's going to have to contribute. If you make a long run through October, you're not going to be able to lean on 3 relievers the whole way through unless you got some starters that are going out there and throwing that Greg Maddux style of complete game, which I don't put past Max Fried. He's shown us he can do that, but I don't necessarily expect it every 5th day in the postseason or on short rest, as the case may be, a time or two for some Braves pitchers. We'll see how they deploy those relievers as far as what Brian Snitker's thinking. But yeah, we're going to need everybody to step in and contribute something to this in order to make this thing go as far as it can go.
So the Braves with a chance to close things out in Tuesday's Game 4. We don't know at this point what the pitching matchups are going to be. Craig Counsell said starting Corbin Burnes on short rest is not an option. Brian Snitker has not disclosed who will start for the Braves. So leads to maybe a bullpen game, maybe Charlie Morton on short rest. If you're in Snitker's seat, Grant, who gets to start in Game 4?
Well, this is a great question. I mean, Charlie Morton on 3 days rest, I went back and looked at Baseball Reference to see if he'd ever done it before. 2008 during his rookie season for the Braves. It's been a hot minute since he's thrown a regular season start on 3 days rest. He did famously throw a pretty big relief appearance for the Houston Astros in 2017 on 3 days rest and make himself one of the big reasons why, among other things, no jokes necessary, that the Astros won the World Series that year. So he's an option. He's your big game pitcher. That's what you're paying him to do. Maybe it's not, hey, Charlie, come in and give us 6-7 innings like Game 1 was. Maybe it's Charlie, come and give us the 3 best innings you can. We'll piece it together after that. You've got Huascar Yanoa. You mentioned Corey. We haven't seen him in this series. He's got big-time stuff. It's going to play up in a shorter stint, but his second half was not exactly something that makes you feel great about overexposing Yanoa. So we'll see if that's a big factor. We saw in the postseason last year that AJ Minter answered a very different call than he had in quite some time, and he got a spot start as an opener. So perhaps that's on the table as well. And if you're the Brewers, I mean, it's all hands on deck, whether it's Eric Lauer getting the start, whether it's, I don't know if they would throw Hauser again in a multi-inning opener type role. If he doesn't have to face Joc Pederson, he'd probably be pretty happy. But I guess you have to do everything you can. I'm surprised that Corbin Burnes is quote unquote off limits, but just because he doesn't start doesn't mean you might not see him before all's said and done. There's some gamesmanship going on here. Clearly, both clubs are playing it close to the vest in the immediate aftermath of Game 3. But I'm fascinated to see not only what decision is made as far as who starts, but how the rest of the pitching staff is utilized, with a team trying to win it and another team trying to stave off elimination and push the series into a Game 5. Big decisions for both skippers.
Yeah, honestly, I don't understand Counsell saying that. I mean, they used primarily 6 starters during this season, and Burnes only threw 167 innings. He was fantastic, obviously, in Game 1, 6 scoreless innings, 6 strikeouts. I don't understand saying that he's unavailable in Game 4. To me, that just makes absolutely no sense when there is no Game 5. I mean, you're not playing if you don't win tomorrow at Truist Park. So I don't understand that. But then from Snitker's standpoint, I mean, Jesse Chavez, we've seen him get the opportunity as kind of that opener before, but I don't know if what we saw out of him today kind of takes him out of getting that opportunity tomorrow as being the lead guy. Huascar, a 6.52 ERA in his last 6 starts, gave up 5 home runs in that span. You mentioned AJ Minter. I mean, we saw him thrive in that role last year in the NLCS against the Dodgers. So, Charlie Morton's 37 years old. He hasn't done it, as you mentioned, since 2008. If I'm in that role, I say, give me AJ Minter, and we'll see if he can handle this again, because we know, again, that Snitker likes to do things you've seen Snitker do before. I would not be surprised to see Minter get that opportunity. You go with if it doesn't work out. Is obviously, not pitched at this level before. So that opportunity for him following Minter. Then you kind of just roll the dice. We ran through all those relievers. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have to eat innings, if things go awry, throw Drew Smyly out there and we'll see everybody back in Milwaukee. So I don't like going into this with the idea that, okay, we have a game to give, because you can't manage like that in the postseason. But certainly, I don't think Morton on short rest is the right option. So you've got all these guys. Let's see how they roll it out there. But I think I'd probably start off with Minter in Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an option, I think. I mean, maybe it was at one point. And as you mentioned, Brian, Snitker is a creature of habit and does get different roles and different guys in places where he's trying to put them in a position, hopefully, to succeed. But, again, all this stuff is going to get second and third guessed, and rightfully so, because this is October and that's what it's all about. I would look at Charlie Morton maybe a little bit differently. Maybe Morton is my opener again. Have him come out there and just empty it out for 3 innings. Give you everything he's got. And then if it's Smyly, if it's Enoa, if it's each of them for a couple of innings to get to Chavez, to get to AJ Minter, and figure out how you're going to close it out, maybe use Will Smith again at that point. You'd like to give Matzek and I think Luke Jackson a moment to maybe take a deep breath and compose themselves. But as I've said before, and it might be getting repetitive now, it has to feel a little bit like all hands on deck for the Braves, more so for the Brewers, but for the Braves as well. So I wouldn't limit Charlie Morton to, you haven't started in 3 days in your regular season career in a long time. He's done it in relief. He did it not long ago. That's what you're paying him for. And I'm sure if you ask Charlie Morton, can you give me X amount of innings today? He's going to say, yeah, give me the ball. And that's the kind of competitor you need out there. I think his stuff will be there. If he's not using it as a throw day and he's just saving everything for in-game action, this is a guy that knows his body, knows his arm, and hopefully can come out there and contribute to a Braves victory if he's needed to for however long that is.
Well, I can't imagine if you ask Charlie Morton or any starter for that matter, if they want to pitch on short rest in the postseason, anybody's going to tell you that they're not up for it. So I'm sure
there are some guys that you have more confidence in than others, if that makes sense. And with his postseason, reputation and resume, that's a guy that when he tells me that, I feel a little bit more confident than perhaps asking. And this is not a knock on Ian Anderson whatsoever, but would you ask a guy who's 35, 40 starts into his big league career and expect the same kind of confidence that would come with that? I'm not sure you do, even though the stuff is there, and Ian showed it today. And again, this is all a hypothetical when Ian Anderson's not starting Game 4, so there's that.
Can they pray for rain? Is that an option here? Then we get a reset on all this stuff. And
it was in 1948.
Again, so. That's right. All right. Well, the Braves are 1 win away from a return to the NLCS, and come along with the ride here on Battery Power. Make sure you subscribe to Talking Chop's YouTube channel, turn on those alerts notifications so you find out about every single episode that Grant and I push out. He's Grant McAuley. I'm Cory McCartney. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Braves Country.